Peace and blessings. Today I'll show a few of the great memories from the USCMO Capitol Hill Muslim Advocacy Day. During the breaks in this event, I also visit some of the great places around Capitol Hill, including the Library of Congress, Supreme Court, and National Botanical Gardens. And like any great Islamic event, this one begins with recitation of the Quran. So I've got a little bit of time today after visiting with the offices of Ted Cruz and Pete Olson. I'm going to try to see some of the sites right here around Capitol Hill. This right beside me is the Library of Congress, the largest library in the world. I'm very excited to go in there, and the Supreme Court building adjacent to that. There's some interesting murals or interesting sculptures in there I'd like to see, apparently giving recognition to the Islamic contributions to law. So I'm very excited to see that, and perhaps visit some of the other places around Capitol Hill as well. Inside of the Supreme Court building right now, and there's an interesting museum, interesting exhibit on different judges in American history, as well as different judges throughout history. And of peculiar interest to me is this piece right here, which is the greatest lawgivers in all of history. And I don't really believe that we should make images of the prophets, peace be upon them, or the saints, but this does include Solomon, peace be upon him, and Moses, may peace and blessings be upon him, as well as the Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, which I find incredibly touching, because it shows that Islam has a place in America. Islam is recognized by the Supreme Court, by these great modern lawgivers as a source of law, that has influenced the world and has even influenced America. So I find that very interesting, and helps me to kind of connect with both being a Muslim and being an American as well. Inside the United States Capitol building, we've been having receptions here, meetings. There was a speech from Judy Chu, one of the representatives.
We will not give up in our fight to stop it. And so we have to use every means possible.
It's an incredibly beautiful building down here. There's restaurants, there's a lot of interesting things that I wouldn't expect. Statues, art, etc. But I don't know why all of the art here is naked people. It blows my mind. So what a beautiful and productive day that we've had here in Washington, D.C. Started off with the USCMO Capitol Hill Day, # Muslim Hill Day. And then getting to explore during the free time the Library of Congress and the Supreme Court building, both of which are extraordinary places. The Supreme Court building is where I went first, and it's mainly just an underground section detailing law and detailing the law throughout history as well as law in America. They had sections on women judges, they had sections on ancient historic law, and there were so many beautiful things to learn there, and really a lot of great history, great information. Then we went over to the Library of Congress, which is the largest library in the world, and it is a treasure trove of information and a treasure trove of beauty as well. I was completely blown away by the beauty of the architecture, the splendor really of the art there. It was obviously reminiscent of Greco-Roman design, as much of the architecture and art is in this city. It was deeply intricate. There were segments on different cultures, different civilizations. There was even a segment on Islamic civilization at the very top of the dome, in the center of the Library of Congress. I tried to get a picture of it, but it was quite far, and I'm just using my phone as a camera, so I don't think I had the capability to do that. But there are plenty online which show that piece as well, dedicated to Islamic sciences, which I think is important, because there are a lot of people who think that Islam is something foreign and which doesn't contribute to society. But obviously, in the Library of Congress, they have entire pieces of art dedicated at the highest point of the Library of Congress, dedicated to the Islamic contributions to science and law and medicine. And there's so many other beautiful dedications as well to the Library of Congress. That was one that piqued my interest. Many sections talk about different poets, or give reference to different poets, I should say. And many sections give reference to different civilizations and societies. And there's many quotes lining the walls, many interesting, bits of philosophy that you can find encapsulated in these different quotes. It really blew my mind. One thing that I found especially intriguing was the Thomas Jefferson Library, filled with, I think, over 6,000 books from Thomas Jefferson. And it's just incredible. It shows the magnitude of the knowledge of the founding fathers of America, and really the scholarship that went into the creation of this nation. I tried to find the Thomas Jefferson Quran. I couldn't find it in all the 6,000 books. I was looking for we were on a little bit of a time crunch too, but because we were just on a break, on a free time. But he does own a copy of the Quran. Ilhan Omar actually recently used it during her inauguration, so maybe that's where it was, because I couldn't find it. But anyway, the Library of Congress was amazing, beyond belief. And one thing that really blew my mind in Thomas Jefferson's library was I don't know if it was a quote or kind of an extrapolation from his philosophy, but it said that basically the concepts of memory, of reason, and of imagination were in a sense manifested in history and philosophy and art. And I thought that was just beautiful to kind of visualize that, to kind of realize that truth of our psychology and of our sciences in the world. It was really profound, a really mind-blowing quote or mind-blowing idea, and I love that. As for right now, the sun is setting. The day is unfortunately coming to a close. So I'm just going to visit a few of these monuments right here at the foot of the Capitol Hill and see what beauty they have, see what beauty I can find there. Maybe get a few more shots. And then, inshallah, if God wills, I'll head back to the hotel and call it a day. The Capitol Hill building is really quite an exquisite piece of architecture, an exquisite piece of work. The sunset here is marvelous. Reflecting off of the Capitol Hill building gives it this golden glow, and it especially contrasts with the pink flowers surrounding it on the cherry blossoms, the blue water and the blue sky. It's just incredible. It's just a vibrant place. And the sunset here is perhaps one of the best I've seen, especially it descending in a cityscape, which generally the sunsets are, quite masked by the city, by the buildings. But here, the National Mall provides a perfect, picturesque view of the sunset here. It's really like nothing I've ever seen before, like nowhere I've been before. The people who built this were master masons. They were masters of community planning. It really reflects in the beauty of the city. That all the details, all of the different scenes, and the way that it's all aligned, not only with the buildings but also with the nature surrounding it. So I'll sit here, or perhaps go back up to the Capitol Hill building and enjoy this marvelous sunset.
Day 2 began by attending a congressional committee in order to try and see Rashida Tlaib and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Today I've been between the Rayburn building and the Longworth building. We didn't have any congressional meetings this early in the morning, but we really had an intention to go see Rashida Tlaib and maybe Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We managed to get some pictures and speak for a minute with Rashida Tlaib, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was too busy with cameras and news, so we weren't able to speak with her, get any pictures. I did manage to snap one of her, but didn't get to speak to her too much, unfortunately. So now hopefully I'll head to the Botanical Gardens, spend a little bit of time there before my next congressional meeting. In Botanical Gardens you find a number of different ecosystems, and as you walk through each conservatory, Each biosphere contains the representative species of that ecosystem. So you start off in the front atrium area where there are coffee trees, coffee beans, chocolate trees, coconut palms, and plenty of other beautiful plants surrounding the two fountains on the left and the right of the entrance. Then you enter into the plant adaptation greenhouse, which covers the changes that plants undergo in their DNA as they progress through natural selection. There are plenty of beautiful flowers in there and species and informational panels. Then you travel to Hawaii with tropical plants from various different ecosystems and the unique ways that they developed on those distant islands. Then you head over to the desert section here, and the desert section is beautiful, shows the plants that thrive in conditions with high heat and low precipitation. There are medicinal herbs and mints, plenty of food plants that you might recognize from your spice cabinet. And lastly, you'll get to the orchids, which was my favorite room as far as the beauty, while the medicinal room maybe was my favorite as far as the information, since I have sort of an affinity for natural medicines and traditional healing methods. Lastly is the Mediterranean room, which represents climates obviously around the Mediterranean Sea, as well as Chile and California and other places that have similar climates. Finally are the endangered species, which is the last group represented if you walk clockwise around the botanical gardens. In the center of it all is this beautiful tropical atrium, this beautiful tropical greenhouse with a variety of different plants, each with their own beauty. There's a waterfall and a stream in the center, and a skywalk, a canopy walk above the floor below, above the plants below. Outside they have native plant gardens and beautiful views of duck ponds and plenty of nice architecture. Although it's still quite cold here, a few of the flowers are peeking through into the spring, and you can see the Capitol building just above the conservatory.
The gardens represented only a small portion of the outstanding landscaping in DC. The flowers and the trees were only magnified in beauty by the magnificent design of the buildings and the charming city streets. Each place was filled with history down the endless hallways and staircases there. There's no place quite like this in the world, and I look forward to sharing my experiences at the Smithsonian next. Until then, peace and blessings. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow me on my journey in life.